Good morning. It's great to have you on here this morning. Man, I know I'm glad to be back. So, had a big time softball travel deal, one way, 3 hours, and so had to stay over. And it was one of the little things my daughter wanted to do on her senior year, so we did it. And when you get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and your wife works all the time, and she doesn't get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes you have to make the old sacrifice of cutting out the Sunday school lesson for a moment. So I always hate to miss it. And but here we are. So we're here. We're glad to see you this morning. Sammy Jeffers, good to see you as always. Maureen, great to see you and Glenn again yesterday. And it's always so good to see everybody. So a little bit out of breath. I do a little exercise in the morning before I do this, just for a second, just to get the heart pumping, make sure everything's functioning right. Myrtle, good to see you this morning. I hope you're doing good. How's Benita been feeling here? Hope she's been feeling good. So we're getting better. This weather's been kind of weird. You know, we haven't had the big snowfall like they've had out west. They've had like 50 and 60 and 70 feet of snow in places out west. It's pretty crazy. But isn't that just, I mean, I hope we never have that here. I don't know if we could stand that here. It would probably flood us all out here. But somehow out west, they are able to do that. So we are just about ready to jump into the plagues of Egypt. Now, these plagues, I've done some thinking on these, I guess probably because I spend a lot more time talking about the tribulation period than I do talking about the plagues that God turns loose on Egypt. But remember, Karen McKiff, good to see you this morning. Remember that Egypt is always a picture of the world, okay? So God's children are in the world. That's the Hebrew children at this time. God sends a messenger. The messenger is Moses. Moses, go get my children. Tell Pharaoh to let my children go. So just as hard as it's going to be, and once again, it's kind of hard sometimes to give you a lesson that you know the end to, right? Because we know the children come out of Egypt. And we know it's a crazy struggle how they do it. But what you and I've got to see is, number one, when just days into leaving, they are thinking, hey, I want to go back. So 2 million people whose prayer God heard think, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just wanting to go back. And to me, I'm like, whoa, it's a little bit crazy, okay? But here's the deal in all that. People want to go back. People want to do whatever they want to do, right? But when we stop and look at these things, it's no different than us today. It's no different than Lot's wife. You know, we say, I love Jesus, I love Jesus, I want to be with Jesus. And then we're like, I love Jesus, like driving a car. I love Jesus, and Jesus is the head. You know, everything about Jesus is now and forward, now and forward. Jesus is not, hey, you know, look back at all the things you did wrong. I'm not saying it's not good to reflect and do better in the future, but Jesus doesn't want you driving down the road like this. Oh, man, I should have done that. Oh, that was a mistake. Oh, man. They'll never forgive me for that. Well, people can't forgive me anyway, right? So I got to move forward with Jesus Christ. So I get both hands on the wheel at the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock position. Y'all probably didn't think I'd remember that, right? And we got our face forward for Jesus, and we're not worrying. So one of the things, after studying for years and years and living off the movie The 10 Commandments, that I got from all this is the fact that these Israelites were delivered from strong bondage, and all they ever thought about was going back into the world. Now, for them, it was Egypt. For us, it's just back into the world. We're not separated in such a dramatic fashion. Now, we are individually. Stephanie Barker, you know you're separated from the world because Jesus loves you and Jesus saves you, and you've dedicated your life. And I guarantee you, you've always been a wonderful person. And I guarantee that people around you have no doubt and no wonder if you believe in Jesus Christ or not. See? And so Stephanie has come out of the world. But there's so many people out here in the world that they've never really come out of the world. Here's the divider, you know. I've got 1 foot over the fence here. I'm out of the world. I got 1 foot still in because, man, I just can't let it go. So I'm bouncing back and forth, and I just ultimately get confused, and I'll ultimately give up because I just don't have it, right? And that's what's hard to believe is because or not hard to believe. It's easy to do, but it's very difficult, you know, without focus. And I'm not very focused. Tony Smith, good to see you this morning. I mean, I got the bad ADD thing, right? I mean, I can start anything. I got the power to get her started. I mean, I focus and push and push and push and open the door and say, okay, now it's somebody else's turn, right? And I mean, same thing when I went to school, you know. I pushed and pushed and try to get something, and I think I've looked through something so many times that my eyes are hurting, and I'm tired of studying, and I go get a C on the test, sometimes worse, right? And you're like, man, I spent a lot of time on that. Why didn't I get that? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1, I didn't spend enough time to get an A or a B, and number 2 is it just didn't click. See, my daughter's got that mind, and her mother's got that mind. They look at something one time, and it's in their mind forever. I'm just not that way, right? So we're all different, and that's good. So, all right, I'm going to get into it. David White, great to see. Evelyn Cartwright, always good to see you. Yesterday was great. I hope the knee is still doing good. You come in and have therapy by walking around our little store anytime you want, right? So again, I think Pam and Butch need some prayer for some traveling. I think they got some traveling coming up. I hope that was okay to say that. Oh, man, I tell you what, the head and the chest congestion is there, Myrtle, that's for sure. The up and down weather and the wind. Man, oh, man, the wind is insane. All right, so just quickly. Egypt, always a picture of the world. Pharaoh, probably a picture of the devil and the demonic forces of evil that are in the universe. The people, the Israelites, were trying to get them out of Egypt. We're trying to get them out of the world, trying to get them into the wilderness, trying to get them away from all the swanky, high-tech stuff that keeps us so sidetracked. Just like it does me. I mean, we're all the same. Give me my phone. I can entertain myself for hours. Right? Oh, I'm using it for good. I'm looking at the news for 2 minutes a day. Right? But anyway, there it is. So let's get into this because here's plague number 1. And once again, the first one was turn the water into blood. Now, if any of you have ever been driving down the road and see an animal that's been laying there that's been hit by a car or whatever for a few days, there is a smell like no other smell. Okay? Now, what is that? That's the blood. Okay? That blood that keeps us all alive, whether we're man, woman, child, animal, whatever it is, that blood is what pumping through our bodies gives us life. Whenever something happens and that blood starts to leave our life, or it gets out here in the air, and you know there is a smell like no other. Okay, so I don't want to nauseate anybody at 7 o'clock in the morning. So the plague of blood comes, and I want you to think about. And I told you this, I think, the other day. They cleaned out our creeks as kids out there, and I'll never forget the smell of all those dead fish. Right. And I didn't even realize that the creek had that many fish in it. But you want to smell something that stinks, it's dead fish. So I wonder if it's ironic that he starts with the plague of the blood. So there it goes. So the magicians of Egypt, they try to combat this in verse 22 of chapter 7 with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto the children as the Lord had said. Pharaoh turned, went into his house, neither did he set his heart to this also. And all of the Egyptians digged round about the river for water to drink, but they could not find of the water of the river. And 7 days were fulfilled after that the Lord had smitten the river. Now, what is 7 in the Bible? 7 is a complete number. 7 days in a week. 6 days man works, 7th day he rests. Okay, that's the Old Testament thing. Okay, we don't live under work 6 days and rest on the Sabbath. The Sabbath in the Old Testament is a Saturday. We have come to commemorate Sunday as the Lord's day and our day and time. Okay, once again, we're not commanded to take that off work. We're not commanded to do anything because now that we have Jesus, Jesus is an everyday God, a God that we can pray to when we want to pray to, as long as we keep our prayer line open to the Lord. And that's what we always want to be doing. So, there's the plague of the blood. Now, I can't even imagine what this first plague is. So, everybody's struggling. Nobody can find water. Then the Lord spake unto Moses, give him the plague of the frogs, he says. And here it comes. It says, if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all the borders with frogs. And the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thy house, and into thy bedchambers, and under thy bed, and under the house, and under thy ovens, and into the kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come upon thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Aaron, stretch forth thy rod with thy hand over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up in the land of Egypt. And again, I could say, I'm not a Sunday school teacher. I'm not a preacher. I'm not blah, blah, blah. Or it's the preacher's job. It's the deacon's job. It's everybody's job to do something for Jesus. But don't miss out in your Christian walk on the relationship you can have with Jesus, because you're not where you need to be doing what God wants you to do. Can you imagine? Here's Aaron. He didn't know about the burning bush. I'm sure Moses and him have talked about it. Aaron didn't know that Moses nominated him and said, just get Aaron. He's already over there where you need him to be. See, God needed Moses to get from here to here in his relationship with God as well. And that's what I was hoping to bring out here in this point. Here's Aaron. He says, stretch forth that rod, Aaron, over the waters and the ponds and the creeks and everything, and bring the frogs forth. Okay? Well, once again, would there be anything more aggravating than frogs during this period of time? And once again, could we even begin to question where the frogs came from? God says it. Aaron, does what I don't even know what you would call that. Follows the commands of God. Therefore, God fulfills what God says he's going to do. Here come the frogs. So Aaron and Moses have a front row seat on all the things God's doing. Now, we're going to get over here a little bit later. We're going to find out why God used Moses and he didn't use Aaron. Because once again, Aaron, he did some good things, but it was real easy for Aaron to slip back in or to follow the crowd. A little bit later, we'll get into that. So now they turn loose the frogs, okay? So we got that. And the magicians tried with their encampments and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. So once again, are the magicians, God says, if thou shalt refuse to let the magicians, the fact that the magicians also were able to raise up enchantments and brought up frogs certainly would have been a blessing to the Egyptians, would not have been a blessing to the Egyptians. There's so many gods in the Egyptians. They call the goddess Hecate, the spouse of the god Khnum, who is depicted in the form of a woman with the frog's head, was hailed to blow the breath of life into the nostrils of her body that her husband fashioned, which is kind of parallel in what their God belief system was to our Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. So Genesis intends to convey that Israel's God alone rules the universe, and that he alone bestows on his creatures, according to his will, the power of fertility. So these frogs, considered by the Egyptians a symbol of fertility, could be transformed, if God so desired, from a token of blessing to one of blight. So Moses allowed Pharaoh to pick the time when the frogs should be removed, saying, "Glory over me, when shall I entreat for thee?" The sense of this language is that Moses allowed Pharaoh the choice of the time when Moses would intercede for him. Then God would remove the frogs. But notice Pharaoh's response here. I hadn't got quite to that. When Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them. See, what's the deal? You ever ask God to forgive you? You ever ask God to get you through something, and just about the time he gets you through something, and you've got this little respite. You know, life's kind of good. You know, there's no major things going on, and all of a sudden, you harden your heart against God. You turn your back on the God that delivered you or answered your prayer when all these crazy things were going on, and then all of a sudden, you just, well, I don't really need church, and I don't really need God, and I don't know what church is good enough for me, because I'm just, you know, I never make mistakes anyway, so why would I want to hang out with a bunch of hypocrites? You know, I mean, we've all got excuses on why we don't want to go, okay? So Pharaoh, once he saw the rest, but once Pharaoh could get a second wind, Pharaoh hardens his heart after asking for the relief, even when God had allowed Pharaoh the opportunity to decide when the frogs would disappear. So kind of interesting. Once again, when we get into the sorcerers, the enchanters, the sorcery, all these things, please stay away from that kind of stuff, because the sources of demonic activity are real. If you start trying to conjure up these spirits, they will definitely get involved in your life. And from the horoscope to the Ouija board or whatever, you really got to be careful. Because sometimes when we're desperate, or we think we're desperate, and we're looking for relief, we're looking for somebody to answer our prayer, we're looking, all these things we got to really be careful of, because we don't want to get in a situation where next thing you know, we wake up and we're actually following sorcery and witchcraft versus following some of this other stuff. So there we go. So the plague of lice is this. That's the third plague. So I've got the plague of blood that turned all the water to blood, killed all the fish in the water. Can't even imagine it. Then on top of that, we've got these slimy frogs that come out of the water. So why does God, once again, the frog was a fertility god to the Egyptians, or had fertility consequences. So why does God make the second plague frogs? Because God wanted Pharaoh to know, I've got the power over your gods. That's my thinking on it. So now we go to the plague of lice. Now, man, oh man, you talk about a plague. I mean, is there anything worse than lice? Right? I mean, the lice is just bouncing all over the place. And then with all this, I'm figuring it was a lot worse. So the Lord said unto Moses, tell Aaron to stretch out the rod, smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. So the dust might become lice. Did you ever read that way? I mean, that's a lot of lice, right? And they did so, and Aaron stretched forth his rod, he smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and on beasts. Once again, sometimes the animals get penalized or taken out or sacrificed, for a payment on sin debt for man, or I guess the animals were changed after the flood. I mean, there's all kinds of things where the animals could look to God and say, why'd you do this to us? Man, these people you created, they're animals. They're crazy, Of course, we are an animal, right? So the magicians did so with their lice to bring forth lice, but they could not do it. So they were lice upon men and upon beasts. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. Now, the blood, the stench. We ain't even touching the stench of all this that's going on. The frogs for aggravation and just slithering everywhere and showing up as they detail. They're going to show up in the kneading room. They're going to be in the kitchens. They're going to be in the bathhouses. They're going to be everywhere. The frogs are all over. Now we got this thing called lice. We don't even have to give you a definition of lice. There's probably nothing that makes us think of something filthier and more aggravating than lice. Then I get down here to the plague that's coming next, which is the plague of flies. So again, the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning, stand before Pharaoh. He'll come down to the waters, and when he does, you say unto him, the Lord said, let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, I will send swarms of flies. See, that stench and that smell of death from that water, and all that dead sea life and fish. Oh, golly, I can't even imagine. And here come the flies, right? And upon thee and upon thy servants and thy servants' house and upon the house of Egypt be full of flies, and also the ground whereupon they are. You know that this is getting to be that time of year when these flies just swarm, and I don't know where they come from or what their deal is. But I mean, you'll see them on white stuff is what I've noticed. I don't, just really weird. So, God says, I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be. And the Lord did so. And there also was a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh and into his servants' houses and into the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. But once again, now we start to see something just a little bit different. There's a barrier here between us. See, Christian, there's always going to be a barrier between you and the world. If you get to where your barrier's getting wider and wider, and all of a sudden I can't tell my Christian life from my worldly life, then we have a problem. But in God's plan, God sanctified you or set you apart from the things of the world. So you've come out of that, whether you may like it, whether you may not. You may try to pretend to still be part of the world and part of the church, right? Because it's kind of easy to do. It's easy to pretend. It's not easy to do, and it's going to hurt you in the long run. But there it is. It can be that way. So the plague of the flies does it, and Pharaoh says, go. So by Exodus chapter 8, verse 25, Pharaoh calls for Moses and for Aaron and says, go ye sacrifice to your God in the land. And Moses says, it is not meet to do so, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to our Lord our God. Lo, we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, and they will not stone us? So Moses is saying, so you're going to say, let us go, but then what are you going to do? You're going to come out here and stone us or something? Now, this is kind of interesting because Moses this whole time has said, let the people go, go and sacrifice, right? So finally it's happening, right? So once again, go sacrifice to your God in the land is the first of four compromises that Pharaoh is starting to offer, okay? Let me see here if I can give you a little bit more context of what we got. I don't know. The deal was to stay in the land. Okay, don't go very far. Just sacrifice to your God and let's be done with this. So there was the thing. He wasn't going to let the people go. Leave your families with me. That's going to be another thing that comes up here in a minute. Leave your possessions with me. Okay, I mean, it's basically the same appeal that Satan has with Jesus, or to the young Christian today, right? Is what, don't really get away from the things, don't leave me completely, the devil might say, okay? Stay in the land. You can be a Christian and stay out here and keep doing the things you're doing in the world, Don't get very far away from the things you like to do. It's okay to still do these things. Just go to church on Sundays, about all you got to do, right? Third thing, leave your families with me. If you want to, hey, listen, God hears your thoughts. He hears, you don't have to pray. You don't have to make a big scene. You don't even have to go to church to be saved here. Listen, leave your family with me on this thing, right? Don't spend a lot of time talking about Jesus. Don't do all these things. But you do what you think you need to do in your mind. But don't carry these things through physically. Don't take your family from me. This is pretty good, pretty interesting stuff, isn't it? And then leave your possessions with me. Jesus said it, where your heart is, that is where your treasure will be also. Where is my treasure? Is it in my worship with Jesus Christ? I like to think that those of us that are on this Sunday school class of a morning are getting a blessing from being together of a morning, starting the day thinking about Jesus, getting out here and doing some things for Jesus. I think is a great thing. But there's so many people that fall right into the basic appeal that Satan has to young people today, which is I just tell mom and dad that you believe in Jesus, and they're going to leave you alone, and they don't see what you do anyway. We'll go out and do whatever we want to do, and everything will be cool. So it's a little bit more difficult than that, right? So that looks like about where we're at. So the text notes that Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also. Moses had plainly told Pharaoh in verse 29 not to deal deceitfully anymore in letting the people go to the sacrifice of the Lord. The same thing Satan deceived Eve with in Genesis chapter 3 verse 1. Satan's kind of throwing this little half, your God's going to be happy with what I give him. That ain't how it works, right? God's not going to be happy with our leftovers. God's not going to be happy with Pharaoh making some half promise that he's going to break real quick. Okay? So now we're going to get in here to the plague on the cattle. Once again, we're going to get in here and see that Egyptians' religion is rebuked and ridiculed because it included the worship of various animals. We talked about the fertility god being the frog. Now we're going to talk about the god that they had over their animals. So God brings a plague on the cattle. The Lord said unto Moses, go in to Pharaoh and tell him, thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go and will hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle which is in the field, and upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, upon the sheep, and there shall be a very grievous murrain. Okay? The Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt. Once again, separation. The evil is going to get the evil plague here, but the Israelite people, they're going to be protected. Timmy Rolfe, if you're saved today, you never know how protected you are by God. That's just the way it is. Because there's just so many places in my life I can look back and say, man, I should have been killed here. Or this should have happened. Or I could have been in jail. Or all these bad things could have happened. But God saw a need to protect it, protect me, and carry me, and get me through these things. It's the same kind of thing today. God's protecting his people. There is a barrier. But now if I keep bouncing back and forth across the fence, the barrier's going to slowly work its way down, and then it's going to level back out, and I'm just back to where I was. So we've got to be careful with that. So the Lord's going to sever it out. He's going to split these cattle out. The Lord appointed a set time, saying, tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. So the fact that the Lord gave him a time, rise up early in some places, here's the time that this is going to happen. Time still means something to God because you and I are still under time, but time's going to disappear here real quick. And then time shall be no more. Don't we want to be someplace where the day's never going to end? There's never going to be any more aggravation. There's nothing that you ever have to worry about again. I think our answer to that is yes. You said, man, I just can't give up the things of the world. I just can't turn my back on the things. You just don't know what all's going on. I'd have no life if I turned my back on the things of the world. Try Jesus for a while. Jesus doesn't work for your life. You can always quit on Jesus. You can always quit. You can always go back. Okay? See what happens. So, the Lord did that upon the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. Now, think about this for a second. All the cattle of Egypt died. But all the cattle of the children of Israel did not one pass. Pharaoh sent, behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead, and the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. Now, it's probably a good time to think about, do we know people that are so hardened to the things of God, they're just not going to get saved? We sure know a few, don't we? And it's so heartbreaking because Pharaoh made this way harder than it had to be on him. When the living and the true God and the creator of the universe comes to you and says, let my people go, you say, let me get these 2 bags here, use my bags, here's my gold, get out of here. Right? And Pharaoh would have still had his kingdom, everything would have still done what it did, right? But God hardened his heart on purpose. God rubbed salt in the wound, if you will, and he just aggravated him and aggravated him and aggravated him. Why does he do this? because he wants to utterly destroy the Egyptians for keeping his people in bondage. And he really wants to get at the head of the whole Egyptian thing, which is the Pharaoh, or the king. Now, here we go again. Now, the next plague is the boils. The boils, as you can imagine, from the stench and the smell and the death from the blood at first, to the frogs, to the lice, to the dead cattle. Because they didn't have a funeral home or a cemetery for cattle. Where did these cattle lay? You know, they probably burned them, of course. It's probably about all you could have done. But could you imagine trying to bury everything that died during this period of time? So now the boils break out on people. And I don't know about you, but man, I can't imagine the boils. I wouldn't want that, just from what little I've read about it. We definitely would not want our body to have sores that are so bad that I think it was Job that used a clay towel and would scratch the head off of the boil just to get some relief. So pretty painful, pretty crazy stuff. It's so painful, it's so bad that even the magicians and the astronomers, they can't even come before Moses because they've got the boils as well. So the Lord continues to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them as the Lord God had spoken unto Moses. So Moses goes to him again, and he warns that this hail is coming, and the plague of the hail is going to be, it's going to have hail from heaven, and it's going to burn like fire when it hits the ground. So once again, probably a lot of straw roofs in a lot of housing and a lot of barns, right? So once that straw and that fire hits that, probably going to burn down a few things. So the Lord said unto Moses, go stretch forth thy hand toward heaven, and there shall be hail in all the land of Egypt upon every man, woman, and beast, and upon every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran up upon the ground, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail and fire mingled upon the hail, and it was very grievous, such as there was none like it in the land of Egypt since it became a nation. They can never recall ever having anything like this happen. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field that brake every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. So once again, I start looking around, and God is punishing the world. And I start looking around and see how protected I am. I'm going to do something. I'm going to praise the Lord. Right here in this time, these Israelites should have been praising the Lord here, because if you remember, they murmured against Moses, and Moses is God in the beginning. But now look what's going on. It's like, whoa, look at what God's doing. He's turning loose hell on earth on Egypt and Pharaoh, and we're standing over here, and all of our cattle were good. The plague of fire, it burned up the fields. You know, all these things have happened. And man, we're over here and nothing's happened. We've got a front row seat to see God deal with the craziness that's going on out here in this world. Folks, you and I, you look at the folly and the craziness. We don't need to jump in and enjoy that. We need to pray for those people. But at the end of the day, don't think that you jumping into what this crazy world's doing, whether it's politics, whether it's any other perverted thing, that is God already setting up the judgment to come. That is God allowing Satan just a little more rope to turn more people to him. Does God want these people to be evil and to do and whatever? No. But just like Pharaoh and just like the Egyptians, you know, they were so prideful and they were so arrogant and their heart was so hardened. These people serve us. They're our slaves. They're our assets. You know, and once again, it doesn't take long to get a good look at this. Man, there was a time when I was pretty prideful. I was pretty arrogant, right? Now, guaranteed I wasn't on the level of Pharaoh in wealth and power and that kind of thing. But the pictures translate. The types of punishment here can translate over. The things that are in the world today, man, we need to pray for them. I think it's amazing that everybody's worried about the Christian school now and how many kids were killed in the Christian school when nobody cares about the Christian any other time. See, Because what Satan's wanting to do is get the guns out of everybody else's hands, right? And it's working toward those very things. You know, there's certain places like West Virginia where they'll probably never do that, and that's good. Because I don't believe that, you know, I believe a person ought to be able to defend themselves. But at the same time, the push is still the push. It's still chaos. It's still swirling around. See, that's what this whole thing is. It's the swirling, chaotic craziness that the devil thrives in. Because, see, the devil, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Democrat, the devil wants to take you both to where he's going. So you can be the best Democrat, best Republican, best politician, best whatever, and split hell wide open, right? So here's the thing. If Jesus isn't over everything in your life, then there is no co-pilot. You know, there is no, well, my politics is even with my Jesus relationship, right? No, can't be. See, because God said in Exodus chapter 20, which we're coming up on, I'm a jealous God, and I'm not sharing it with anybody. I'm not sharing this thing. Okay, so the plague of the hail comes. As you can imagine, the Hebrew children are probably like, man, this is the second or third plague that's happened, and we've been you know, saved from it. It has not happened to us. Today, I'll tell you what, the moment the church is raptured out of here, the people that are saved are going to leave this place. We've got a front row seat, the first time in human history, when we can actually look at Bible history playing out as we live. And all that's left is the rapture of the church. We'll leave here, and the dead in Christ will go first. The dead in Christ will rise first. Those that are walking around at that time will be caught up to meet them, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. It's going to happen. So we don't want anybody left behind. And that's what we're getting to here. So the Lord said unto Moses, we are in Exodus chapter 10, said unto Moses, go unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that I may show these my signs before him. So what's God saying? I want you to go do something, but if Pharaoh's heart's still hardened and getting harder every second. Folks, I want you to go do something. This is from Jesus, not Brooke Lunsford. I want you to go into the world. I want you to tell people about Jesus. They're not going to hear. But you're not doing it because they will or will not hear, even though I want you to go, and there will be a few get saved, because the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, right? But at the end of the day, I want you to go because I told you to go, and because it's your commission duty to go tell people about Jesus. Oh, I know they're not going to hear. I know they're not going to get saved. Because Moses' heart was hardened. The Egyptian people wanted relief and done with these people. But just like one more thing, there was no relief in sight. So the Lord goes to Pharaoh. He says, I'm going to tell you, Moses, before you go down there, his heart is just as hard as it ever was. But he is going to know when we're done with this situation that I am God. So Moses warns of the coming locust. So Moses and Aaron came in unto Pharaoh, and they said unto the Lord God of the Hebrews, how long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let me share with you, this is another parallel to the things to come. Moses and Aaron say, how long will it be before you humble yourself before the Almighty God, Pharaoh? You may be the most prideful, arrogant person. You may even, be as prideful and arrogant as Pharaoh. You will bow your knee. You will confess that Jesus Christ is the Lord, is the creator of the universe. And then you'll hear, depart from me, I never knew you. Why would you want to do that if you're going to have to declare that Jesus Christ is real? Why not do that while you can have a relationship with Jesus and go to this place called heaven? Right? That's what this thing's all about. That's what we're doing here this morning. It's not that I've got anything special you haven't heard before, but it's bringing it through your mind one more time to say, you know what? I really need to dedicate more time to the things of the Lord. Well, I don't have time for the Lord, man. I mean, I know I'm saved and I'm just going to take it to the grave. Yeah, you probably are, and maybe you are. But here's the deal. Who's going to your family, your friends, and your enemies if you don't go? That's the part that a lot of people keep missing. And it's hard because people think they got this thing all figured out. But if there's nobody to go to your family and your friends and your enemies, can you stop and think about this for a second? Then they perish and you skip right into heaven And you're not going to know because there won't be any tears in heaven, since somehow your memory is going to be changed. But think about it now. If you don't tell people about Jesus and you don't do what Jesus wants you to do, these people aren't going to make it to heaven. How much, I just don't know what it's going to take for people to get a little more serious about Jesus. Oh, I'm not a good speaker. Neither was Moses, so he took Aaron. Okay? Oh, I'm not a very good, whatever. I'm not a Bible expert. Listen, if you wait till you're a Bible expert to do something for the Lord, you'll never do it. I still wouldn't do it because I'm not a Bible expert. But I can tell you John 3:16 that God loves you. I can tell you that Romans 3:10 and 3:23 tells us that we're all sinners and that there's none of us any good. That Romans 6:23 tells us the wages of sin is death. If I don't straighten this thing up, what I deserve, the wages, what I've earned, are death in God's eyes. But the good news is that Jesus stands at the door and knocks in Revelation 3:20, and he wants to come in. Wants to be a leader of your heart. He wants to lead you, direct, and guide your path. Right? If you call upon the name of the Lord, Lord, save me. That simple prayer could get you saved. I don't believe it. We'll go to Romans 10:13 and take a look. Right? Well, I just don't know. I just don't know if it's possible. Can you be saved? Why would you be saved? What would I have to do? Confess with your mouth. Tell people that you believe in Jesus Christ. Lord, I believe you. I believe, Jesus. I believe that God raised you from the dead. Right? And it says in Romans 10:9 that if I believe that you were raised from the dead, that I could be saved. Just as you overcame death, hell, and the grave, I could overcome it in the same way. Jesus says in John 5:24, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth the word and believeth on him that sent me. We're talking about the word of God this morning. If you'll hear the word of God and you'll believe on the Father that's in heaven and that he sent his Son to die for your sins, you could be passed from death unto life. The condemnation means you're condemned to death in the devil's hell. But you'll be passed from condemnation across this great divide into eternal life. Isn't that amazing? As it is written in John 20:31, as it is written, right? Believe in Jesus Christ, that he is the Christ, right? The Son of God. If you believe that he is the Christ, he is the Son of God, that through that belief, you might have life through his name. You're going to live forever. Man, I know things can get tough. Man, I tell you, maybe illness has got you down. There's all kinds of crazy things out there in the world. And, they're looked so many times. They're just, so many times the world looks like it's winning against God's plan. But he's not winning. And that's the thing. We'll finish up with the locusts and get into the darkness tomorrow. But listen, God's winning this thing. Just because God doesn't show off and God wants a more personal, more private relationship with people, this world's not winning. The corruption's not winning. The Democrats are not winning. The Republicans are not winning. It's fighting against each other, not being able to get along, not being able to help the American people. Corporations stealing everything, providing, selling products that aren't worth 10 cents. The inflation, all this, it's all chaos, all to get people sidetracked from the real deal. And the real deal is today, right now, you've got the power to change your life and come to Jesus, right? Why do I have that power? Well, we just told you all about it. How God loved you, what do we got to do? We've got to just realize we're a sinner. We've all come to Jesus the same way. There's nobody, I didn't get any special treatment. My special treatment was I deserved hell, and God loved me enough to give me another and another and another chance. I don't know how many chances that you have. I don't know how many times God's going to let you go do whatever he needs to do. Yeah, I saw you had that rotator cuff surgery, so we'll be praying for that shoulder rehab, and pray you get your fastball back there when you get that rehab done, because the opening season, I think, is today in pro baseball, isn't it? So, yes, pray for TG, pray for everybody. Listen, We don't want anybody to perish. We don't want anybody going to hell. It's not God's plan that any would go to hell. But God has some rules. He has some regulations. And you're not going to be able to run your whole life and pretend to be tough like Pharaoh and expect to escape the judgment that God has waiting for those that have this hard, bitter heart against the God that has tried to love you and tried to get your attention and tried to save you for your whole life. It will not work. Promise you. Lord, we're thankful. Thankful that you've met with us this morning. We ask for you to be with TG and his shoulder rehab here on the rotator cuff surgeries. We've got people that are sick on here this morning, people that are fighting cancer, people that are fighting lots of different sicknesses. Man, this stomach bug has just been a beast, and it's crazy. And Lord, as we get into these plagues and these locusts and these sicknesses, we live in a sin-cursed world. And we say, why does this happen to good people? Well, there's none of us that are any good, and sometimes we forgot to realize that anytime something happens, we need to thank God when we have a breath and we get through these trials and tribulations. Maybe it's a tornado, maybe it's a school shooting, maybe it's whatever it is. Listen, we don't understand that their forces of demonic activity are real, and they're going to get more prevalent as we get closer to the return of Jesus at the rapture of the church, because there's so many people thinking right now, man, maybe I should think about Jesus. And the last thing the devil wants is those people to think about Jesus. So the devil puts something in their life. It's something that's bad. The people don't know what they believe, so they blame Jesus. There's so many people in this world today trying to blame Jesus for things that they ought to be blaming the devil for, or the sin-cursed world that the devil initiated there with Adam and Eve. And we're missing the point and the relationship that we could have, because we don't understand just how much God loves us. So I hope and pray your eyes get open and you get saved while there's still time. Because it will not be easy, and a lot of people believe it, but it will not be easy to get saved during this tribulation period. It's just not going to be this bed of roses that people think it is. It's not going to be the sign that wakes everybody up and says, oh, now I'm going to get saved. So please be careful if you're waiting on that tribulation period. Lord, again, our prayer list. Each one of us have a prayer list that's on our heart. Would you read and see every prayer request on each heart that listens to us here today? Lord, will you hear the prayer requests that we have for our program, which has our men and women in the military and their families at the very top of the list. We appreciate these people, and we appreciate them and their families so much for the sacrifices that they've made. We need to help them in every possible way. Our veterans, the men and women that have already served us, we pray that you'll always be with these people. You always carry these people. Help them in every possible way, because the families are taken care in so many cases of a disabled veteran or a veteran with PTSD, or there's something going on. There's so much that's happening out there in the world. So we hope and pray that you'll be with them and you'll guide them and you'll take care of them in a special way. Again, what else we got going, Lord? You know the prayer list that we have, our policemen, our firefighters, and our first responders. They always need our prayer. There's always something crazy going on out there in this world. And I hope and pray that you'll always keep them safe and you'll let them know that we respect them and we care about it. Our school system needs prayer. Our kids are in desperate need of prayer. We've got to get discipline back in the schoolhouse. We need our teachers to have the power to teach. Got to get this paperwork cut out in this school system. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You got kids on what they call an IEP. These kids have not changed their behavior. There's nothing you can do in the whole wide world for these people. And they're doing these meetings and paying all these experts and all this stuff. And there's just nothing you can do. You just can't knock 8 or 10 years of building blocks out from under a kid and expect he's just going to come through somewhere down the line and all of a sudden he's an A student or a B student or even a C student. So, Lord, the paperwork and the education system is in a major struggle. And let's hope and pray that somebody will step up and have the guts to try to do something at the state and the federal level to right this wrong. And our foster kids, I'll leave them out someday, but there's kids that are being traumatized by the foster care system. Sometimes the system is necessary to help kids in dangerous settings. But sometimes it's abused, as a lot of people say. And I don't care what people say. Oh, you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, what you want to do, I don't care. But listen, till we have the three basic needs of life are food, shelter, and clothing. And in that food and shelter and clothing is a safety. If you don't feel safe, it's not too long of being unsafe before you're going to turn into just a wild animal. And we got a little bit of that. Maybe we've got a lot of that. We really got to do something for these kids. We've got to make a move. We've got to quit worrying about failure. Everybody worried about something failing. And you need to quit worrying about the failure and jump in here and get something done. 7,000 foster kids in West Virginia, 400,000 foster kids in the United States of America. It's too big for one person. It's too big for this system that's set up as a foster family setup right now. It just will not work. But it is a great chance for God's people to make a big impact on a lot of kids right now if we will do it. So, Lord, also we ask for to be with our medical community with all the stomach virus, with COVID still hanging around out there, and with all these other sicknesses and variants of viruses and things. Man, oh man, Lord, we just hope and pray that you'll be there and that you'll carry everybody through. Lord, we know we're saved. We're going to meet you one day in the air. But Lord, we know that there's so many that are either bitter or mad. Please give them another chance. Please forgive them. Please do something in their life. Whatever it takes to bring somebody to you, you got to do it. We beg you to do it because we can't do it. Oh, we can go and be the messengers, and we better do it no matter how evil we think somebody is. We still need to share Jesus with them. And then we know that we've done what you've asked us to do. Again, Lord, please bless each person that's on this radio program. They mean so much to me. I could have rolled over this morning and just kept on snoozing. But I wanted to get here and I wanted to meet with everybody and see everybody and get back to what we love to do. And that's to talk about you and to praise you. And to realize in this Bible that one day you're going to come back and you're going to get us and you're going to take us out of here. And we cannot wait to see you face to face in a place where the day's never going to end, where there'll be no more tears, no more sorrow, and no more pain, according to Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. We love you. Again, we ask you to forgive us where we fail you. Lead us, direct, and guide our paths, and we will not fail to give you the honor and the glory for it all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, folks. Praying for everybody. Pray for Sammy's brother-in-law. We all need prayer. We need to pray for each other. Sometimes, we don't understand or this or that. But at the end of the day, folks, got to pray for each other. I got to live with the consequences of the decisions that I've made in my life. I am still saved. It doesn't matter what I did before I got saved. I'm still going to have problems going forward. I'm living in a sin-cursed world. But please, please, please don't blame God for the things that Satan sent into this crazy world or the things that Satan's promoting, when you can come into the ark of safety and be with God for eternal life. Please don't wait too long. We'll see you tomorrow.